Hello, and welcome to Salon Digital's How to Travel Now with travel writer Juliet Kinsman and me, Helen Bagnall. Yes, tonight we'll be taking a look around some easy ways to be a greener traveller and why it's more important than ever. I think you can see Juliet just behind me. We'll find out where she is in the world in a moment. Juliet, of course, is a travel writer, broadcaster, and eco expert. She's the first ever sustainability editor for Condé Nast Traveller magazine. Swoon. She is a founding editor of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where she was editor-in-chief for 13 years, and she co-authored the Louis Vuitton City Guides, which we were just talking about, for London and New York. She's also the founder of Buteco, a not-for-profit social enterprise that shares the most inspiring stories of sustainability from luxury hotels around the world. And today, she author of The Green Edit, which is a book and more of a framework for gently rethinking sustainability within travel. I know we have a very international audience tonight, so hello. I hope you, like me, are glad to be doing this tonight, because I think for a lot of us at the moment, travel is a real area of focus and interest and confusion. And so with me and as the work I do for Salon London, I really wanted to find a way at looking at how travel might look for us in the near future. And in terms of what we're going to cover tonight, I'm really hoping that we're going to be reassured from Juliet that we can go green without scrimping on comfort and joy, although I think we might be talking about canoeing for a minute or two. And I'm also hoping she can give us some advice on how to sort of rethink where and how we can go. And perhaps even, which I know is the ultimate goal for Juliet with this book, is how our travel can potentially be a force for good. Now, this really is a session where I hope that you can get your questions answers. I'll be talking to Juliet in conversation for about 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, but really as soon as I start to see your questions in the Zerucci platform, which I think you can see, then I'll start putting them to Juliet, because it really is a good chance to find out more from her about our travel plans and possibilities. So it just remains for me to go over to Juliet and ask where that luxury writer and sustainable travel editor is in the world. However, I know where she is, and it looks like she's got problems with her Wi-Fi there. So we're just going to take a 2-minute break and try and re-establish connection with Juliet. Be right back. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to How to Travel Now with Juliet Kinsman. Juliet, we all now know all about your work, and I guess the first question is, where are you? That's having such a problem with this Wi-Fi. Where are you? Luxury editor, sustainable editor. Where in the world are you at the moment?
1994. It's a dial-up. It's a dial-up. I'm in Shoreditch at my desktop. No, I'm in Wales. I can
Good
see that the
choice.
internet's going to do something weird. I can see it. I can't believe this. Look, it's 2020 and we still have internet issues. So I'm off grid in Wales, and it's rural.
And what are you doing? What
So
is
I'm
a
here.
luxury travel writer doing at the moment?
Yeah, well, luxury has totally redefined itself for all of us, I think. And I'm someone called Forest with two Fs, and I think it's glamping. So I always hated that word glamping, but actually I've come to love it. So it is glamorous camping. Staying in a dome. And what's special about it is it's such it. You know what these recent times have taught us is, so first of all, what a devastating time. We're all grounded and we can't travel the way we did. But I think it's taught us why we travel this break. And so for me, being in the UK, going to Wales, it's taught me what I want from time away. And here, it's a change of scenery. I live in a city. It's being surrounded by green. It's really great food. It's feeling better, clear-headed, fresh air. So, that's why I'm here in Wales. Let's hope
No.
I stay connected. And if I don't, thanks, bye.
Well, we all have to adapt, and going off grid has its issues. But I'm loving the idea of you being in your dome in Wales, and it is, being in nature is incredibly beneficial for our health and happiness. So it's good to see you looking so healthy and happy there. It really made me laugh reading in your book, in your acknowledgements about your Manchester grandparents. I didn't realise your grandparents were from Manchester, and you put in there that they used to tell you to rinse out your carrier bag, otherwise where would all that plastic end up? Which obviously had a real effect on you, at an early age. And I just wanted to ask you, we've come a long way in terms of travel and luxury travel in those days in Manchester, and not all of it has been in a great direction. And it does seem at the moment that we've got a good opportunity to kind of rethink travel. How can we make the most of that opportunity?
Yeah, you're right. I was on. We were chatting. It was a safari talk, one of the safari talks that have been happening during this time, and it's about going. It's almost like we're going back to a bit of a golden age of travel. So back in the day, where everyone dressed up, glamorous, got on a plane, special occasion. Think of that time, and then it just became so. Every day we all just hopped around the world all the time, and it's going to be special again. That's something that's changed. Going back to my grandparents, thinking about them. Sustainability and being green and travel, they're different topics, aren't they? But for me, it's about, what do you think of if I say to you, what does green travel mean?
It means awful.
Exactly. Thanks. That's so funny. Well, why do you say that?
Oh, it's just really interesting you saying, we're going to the golden age of travel, and it just makes my heart kind of leap. That's what we want. That's what we want. But it just seems that this golden age of travel that we really want, and protecting the planet, 8% of emissions in on the planet come from flights. The two seem like they can't coexist. And I'm really hoping that you can explain to us that, we're coming to an age where they can coexist, and how this can
Yes.
happen.
Exactly. So I don't want green travel. It did have a bit of a sort of image of being joyless and about really sort of having to hardship, actually, having to give up comfort and all the treats. And, sometimes you leave home to experience what's better than what you have at home. Well, I do anyway. And to feel relaxed, not have to wear a hair shirt. And so actually, I think I was so happy when Ebury asked me to write this book, because they actually approached me in January. Who knew then? So they asked me in January to write the book. I locked down all of February, hunkered down, wrote the book. And, for me, I just felt so excited about everyone joining the conversation around what it means to be green. Yes, like my grandparents, who'd be they lived through World War II. They were just very careful, northern, down to earth, didn't like to waste anything. It was just who they are. But I was excited about saying to people, you know, being green and living in a way that has a positive impact and helps the world flourish doesn't necessarily mean having to compromise on comfort and the stuff you're talking about. In fact, for me, it's the opposite. I mean, if you look at Forest where I am now, it's full of joy.
It's true, but I think that we are going to have to rethink what we do for our travel. I was talking to the Salon London team today, which is the organisation I run to get us together with ideas, and asking them where they went last year, and that people were talking about California, south of France, Ibiza, Mexico, train trips around Europe, and this year it was Dorset, North Yorkshire, my back garden. I think it's really hard to get your mind around travel at the moment. And I think a lot of people thinking that they were going to be in Greece this month, or in Mykonos, or going to be in Portugal, and they're not going. Are we not at risk of with our plans changing so often that almost our ambitions are collapsing because we don't really know how to travel at the moment, and our ways of travelling, the way we've traditionally travelled, are being taken away from us. So how can we stop ourselves sort of like just dropping it and saying, okay, we just won't do it, we won't go anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're so right. It's become incredibly complicated, and that's not going to change anytime soon at all. If I were really honest with you, and of course, I don't know, we don't have a clever technology thing. I have no idea who's watching us. Hi, anyone, everyone. So I don't know who's here, but I'm only ever going to speak truthfully, and I will say I'm afraid it's really disrupted for at least the next year. And I think long-haul destinations are incredibly challenged. I really would love to inspire people to travel further if they can. I spoke to people, Africa's opening up at the moment. Anyway, I think all the conversations around, exactly as you said, the UK, that's great. I know how many people have sent me messages on Instagram saying, I'm booking, Forest where I am now. If you have a look, I'm going to book that. And you should, it's brilliant. I went to Scotland. I have people who booked my, lots of those places after me. But that's for now. I don't think we all just, let's be honest, the weather. I don't think we just want to be holidaying in Wales and Scotland indefinitely. But what we'll do is our travel diaries will they'll shrink, right? So we'll probably take those one really great long haul trip. We'll plan it better. And that's what's key. That's what the book's about. That's what our conversation is about, is the planning. Just investing more time, savoring that time to plan where you're going, why you're going there, what you want from your trip, rather than just the hyper jumping around all the time.
So it's like really stepping back from that kind of mindless, oh yeah, I can go there for 3 days, I can go here for 2 days. You really need to dig deep. I mean, you were quite clear in your first answer. You know why you travel, and I think, is it a time for us to really think, why are we traveling? What are we looking to get out of it? What is our reason for going to these places? Can we get some of these things? I mean, Jim Smith, who's always got a comment, haven't you, Jim, says there's plenty of things you could do without flying. It's true. But it's, we have lived in this time when it's very, very easy to go somewhere for a weekend, go for a few days. And, is it a good time to rethink our own motivations for traveling?
Exactly. I mean, I think it's exactly that. The why are we traveling? I think we're realizing everything had become quite external, rather than the internal feeling of how traveling. For me, when you asked about luxury right at the start, luxury is about a feeling. And I think that it's an incredible thing to travel the world. And I said my travels this year have reminded me why I travel. I'm really missing engaging with far-flung cultures and, people and communities that I've only ever seen in pictures. It's really, really important to see the world like that. But yeah, I mean, it's what's right for us. I mean, more than anything, also, I just think it's such a fantastic opportunity to enrich how you feel, what you think, but also to do incredible good. And I think people hadn't really thought about that before this time, before 10% of the world's workforce pretty much suddenly lost all their work overnight.
Let's stay with flying just for a little bit. Just to deal with it, because it is something that that comes up a lot, and I think when you said you started writing your book before lockdown, you'd written it before lockdown, even at that time you had already reached the conclusion that you were going to reduce the amount of flights that you were taking. Do do you think that we should be reframing the way that we fly in any other ways? Can you see initiatives like climate perks at work, where you get extra days off if you go by train? You know, are there more things that we could be doing with flying to help us get used to not flying?
Yeah, I love those initiatives. And also, you know, a lot of us people are talking about how instead of getting loyalty points for aviation, you should be getting allocated a certain amount of points. And once you've used those up, maybe you shouldn't fly anymore. Because there's a very, very tiny percentage of the world who is responsible for this huge chunk, percentage of CO2 in terms of emissions globally. It's a tiny percentage of people, and it was 2% last year, and it was on track to be rising to about 5% of global emissions were going to come from aviation. Oh, of course, that's halted, but we shouldn't be all like casual and just say, "Oh, it's fine, let's make up for it." It's a wonderful reprieve that we've been given for a moment, and I think we need to. It's just every aspect of travel. It's just really think about how we're flying, who we're giving our money to, scrutinizing that, thinking a little bit more deeply. I always make comparisons, with the food industry or with fashion. Look at that item of clothing. They're not the same necessarily. One might be cheaper. Who made it? How much were those people paid? How does that manufacturing system get rid of its, waste within just looking at the impact. So aviation, again, not all carriers are equal. The Scandinavian carriers, there's Finnair, SAS, you've got KLM and Air France are doing interesting things. They're better, they invest in renewables, they're looking at solutions. So it's really, really important to fly less but fly better. So important, more than ever, actually.
I think that's right. And what I really love about your writing is it's not, it's reasonable. I think, if you're asking people to give up flying, it's just too much. And, a couple of people I've spoken to about tonight are saying that I don't want to be guilted out of my long haul travel because it's really, really important to me. It's what I live for. It's what it's so much a part of my identity. And your idea that you can kind of just really concentrate it down to where you really want to go, working why you want to go. And as you say, really work out every element of your trip. And, I didn't know until you told me that, not all airlines are equal, that, the way you fly is really important. Going direct is really important, that, some that you can really make these decisions, like you say, even in your carrier, that make a real difference.
I don't know how geeky everyone here is about aviation. I really find it fascinating, and you picked up on something we talked about ourselves before, and it's there's so many factors. It's how new the plane is that you're getting on. How well does it process fuel? Look at two cars, one old banger and one hybrid. I mean, we're not at the hybrid stage, but one very efficient modern car. It's the same with planes, and also now because there are less planes in the sky, pilots are able to fly more directly. They take into account certain weather conditions, and if they play it right and they concentrate and don't quite literally just go on autopilot, they can ride it in a way where they use less fuel. I think it's just being much, much more sensitive and caring more. So many factors. Governments actually, incentivizing them to have lower emissions, so we all work together. We all have to work together. The customer, the provider, the government, we all have to work together to camel.
Thank you. And it's really useful. I've already taken the decision that, next time I fly long haul, I'm going to go direct. I normally get a cheaper flight by going through Europe or somewhere else on the way. It takes a bit longer, but it's much cheaper. But that's 2 flights. And it's like, no, I'm going to go less, but pay more to go direct. So thank you. Okay, I've got to laugh a bit, Juliet, because 2 years ago you spent, I think, 3 months in Bali. Most of the times I've spoken to you over the last 10 years or so. You've been to the most incredible locations around the world. This year I know you were in a bothy in Scotland for your summer holiday, and it absolutely poured down, and a farm stay, and it absolutely poured down, and now you're in Wales, which I'm sure is absolutely beautiful and not raining there. But I was just thinking, how has it been for you to really have to grapple with the UK as your destination for travel this year or this summer since lockdown?
Well, actually, no, the weather was kind of fine. And I will say the last long haul trip I took was to the Maldives, where it absolutely was torrential every day. So don't think it's our own special privilege. That's global. That's climate change for you, actually, I think. But So actually, what were you asking me specifically?
I think it's just, as a
Oh,
luxury travel writer who's
flying.
used to traveling the world, all these incredible glamorous locations, how has it been to really get that level of experience of travel in the UK, unprepared, not expecting to have to do it, just go out and find that experience in Scotland, in Wales, in this farm stay? How's it been?
That's a great question. That's the key, isn't it? So, obviously there are things, aspects. You mentioned Bali. I was there 3 years ago. Actually, I went there so my daughter could go to the green school specifically, um, and because there's, most of the people in the island are Hindu, Balinese Hindus. They're Chenang saris, they're called. Anyone who's been there, the beautiful sort of floral offerings all around, and they carry all of their the offerings every day, every morning. There are aspects like that which you're just not going to get, down the road in Aberystwyth. But what do I get from an exotic holiday, or what do I yearn for that I've been satisfied with by being in the UK? Well, actually, something that's really interesting is that I think that this has really shone a light on how we need experts more than ever, and steering us to places and why people like me exist, I hope. And so I would say to you, someone like traditionally very five-star luxury Glen Eagles, but the guy there who's in charge of creating all the country pursuits activities, that's what they call them, he took us on a hike in the wilderness, and he actually is South African. But the fact he'd come from that background, but was creating this sort of incredible storytelling around a hike in the moorlands, and told us all about the heather and actually why it's great in some ways, terrible in other ways, really, really zoomed in on the nature there. That was usually what we would go abroad for as a sort of exotic wilderness safari experience, and it's right there in Scotland. And I think that's what we've done, is neglected to explore what is on our doorstep, and always think we have to go further. The weather can be a factor, but
That's
it's
true.
changing everywhere.
And how can we support UK businesses that are creating these kind of new innovative travel experiences, for us? I mean, you're staying in a, as you say, kind of like a luxury sort of glamping experience in Wales. It's kind of a fairly new concept. A lot of new businesses are trying to match us. They're trying to encourage us to take more trips in the UK, to have these kind of high-end experiences in the UK. But how do we find out about them, and how do we support them?
Yeah, and going back to what I really want to shine a light on are the sort of the good guys in tourism. So the operators who steer you to the best trips, but also themselves are really ethical. So you've got responsible travel. I spotted so far one mistake in the book. Sorry, Justin Francis, I put you down once as Justin Robertson, obviously naming you after the DJ. But so responsible travel, who typically we'd go to for a foreign holiday, they've obviously got itineraries. And Intrepid, who are they've been carbon neutral for years as a business, headquartered in Australia originally, but all over the world. They would create an itinerary typically for us when we go to Asia or the Americas. And now they're creating itineraries in the UK. So I think it is adjusting that. So, we are thinking, okay, I'm not just going to go long haul, but I am still going to turn to the experts. I still have expectations for that hyper local, authentic experience where I've got really, really expert guides getting me under the skin of that destination. And in terms of sustainability, that, it's like I say, going back to a food chain, you would never buy something made with battery farmed chickens, because they haven't, had good conditions, or they don't, the welfare. But in terms of travel supply, everyone's been paid properly. That every business that you're supporting is ethical. It's those lighthouses we need, such as Intrepid.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I really love it. And I can really see, I was kind of like, as you've been talking about it, and I think you're right, with experts and influencers, there is a real need for travel experts and influencers that can kind of have confidence. You can go to Somerset and we will get you an experience. It's a bit like one you could have in the Dordogne. Be confident. You can go on a canoeing and camping trip along the Wye. It's okay. You don't have to fly, to Spain and do it. You can do it. And I think that, there is a real role for people who love to travel and can show us how to do it. Let's talk a little bit more about where to go. I loved in your book that you really highlight places that have great conservation. And I thought it was a really good way of kind of looking at the environment and travel. How can we take conservation as a guide to choosing where to travel?
So So famously, the founder of the European Nature Trust, Paul Lister, who created Allerdale in Scotland, where I just went, also has a huge swathe of the Carpathian Mountains in Romania. He always points out, and I may quote this slightly wrongly, but he says like 3 or 5% of all money given to charity goes to conservation and nature, which is such a small amount, isn't it? It's tiny. In terms of how we can support, different conservation, I think, okay, that aside, we have to decide what we care about as individuals. We all have different passions. So my friend who I'm here with, James, is going to Malta in a few weeks, specifically because he cares about a certain, I think he said turtle doves. So he's found and created this itinerary there because that's something he cares about. So people who care about the Iberian lynx might go to the European Nature Trust's reservation in Spain, or what, whatever it is that means a lot to you. And I think that's really what it is. And then look, you might really, now, especially, dare I mention the B word, Brexit. When I went to Scotland, I stayed in the bothy, as you mentioned, on a farmer's land, because those farmers, there are a lot of farmers that are going to have to reconfigure how they're going to make a living. Things are changing. Sheep farming, it isn't what it used to be. If you subscribe to George Monbiot, the sort of conservationist and activist author, he would say it's all terrible use of land, that kind of sheep farming. Anyway, but so I think, I want to be able to be a support to someone who needs us, who's using the land in a responsible way. You may care particularly about sort of reforestation projects. I think you've got NEP obviously by Isabella Tree's estate, which is educating us all about rewilding. Perhaps it's the education piece that you want to support through staying with them because they're spreading the word. So it's really interesting.
It's a real opportunity to put your values at the core of your decision of where to go.
Totally.
Yeah, I might do that trip to see Serbian owls, long-eared owls, Juliet. You never know.
If that's your passion, if that's what you're,
If James can do turtle doves, then surely I can do Serbian long-eared owls. In terms of, it's a good idea though, and again, it's reframing what you're traveling for, and bringing some of the things that you really care about, which is, a lot of your book is like rethinking how your travel can be a force for good, and by thinking, your passion, whether it's conservation or animals or forestation or whatever it is, can really inform the type of trip that you want to do, and then presumably there's an effect in terms of the people you can support when you're out there. If you're going to places that
are totally. So here, I had a sort of. This evening, I thought, what can I say? I explain. I really want people to know or think about from our chat this evening, because I do lots of talks, and I thought, no, what do I really want people to do? First of all, I want people to hone their own instincts, have their own antenna. So I don't want to tell them where to go or what to do. I want them to feel empowered to navigate themselves to a holiday that's first of all, really enjoyable and great. But yes, it's not so much about its negative impact, thinking about how it's really going to be helpful to people or place. And, I thought about where I am now, Forrest. I asked him, I said, can I just ask you? I said, really, honestly, when I pay to stay here or when guests come here, where's most of their money going with this business? He just looked at me didn't miss a beat. And he said, well, labour and people. And so Zita Cobb, as you know, who's the creator of Fogo Island Inn, she's really an inspiration to me in so many ways, with her economic nutrition certification mark, which some people will have seen, which is, if I had a cereal box here, it would have, the list of the calories and the content. But if you think instead that's representing where the money's going. And so with Forrest, he answered me and he said, Leigh, I thought this is where I want to be. I want to be supporting the local community. I want my money to be doing something good. And so all I would say to people is really just think about who you're giving your money to. Where is it going? Just like, we take food off the shelves. We look at, where's it produced? What's inside of it? It's just thinking like that about travel. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. And I think, and I know we've spoken about this before and we've looked at this in other areas of Salon. When you're looking to change your behaviour, say around food or, fashion, you're trying to move your behaviour from decisions that are, work well for the planet or don't work well for the planet. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to fall back on old behaviour. You're going to book that holiday because you're just used to doing it and, you can't quite figure it out. What you're asking people to do takes time, doesn't it? And you're asking them to, sort of metaphorically go on a journey of rethinking the way that they travel. And it's like all of these are kind of just ideas for us all to find what we're looking for in travel, but to just make it as least impactful and as enjoyable as possible, right?
Exactly. I think if people don't know what to look for, there's someone knocking and knocking, I'm just doing something to say sorry. Okay. And just a sec. So, so funny. This is the first time I've been doing broadcasts from outside my home. And I had someone earlier, I was doing a webinar, and they were trying to order drinks from me whilst I was doing it. I think they thought I worked there. Sorry. So, no, I really think it's just, if people haven't thought about things before, they don't know to look for it. So in the past, you might ring up a hotel and say, hi, what's in the bedrooms, or what TV do you have, or travel agents as well. They might say, how many rooms are there? What are the facilities? Great. We still want to know all of that. But now I think people are empowered, whether they're recommending something on behalf of the client or they're the client themselves, to ring up and say, so I'd really love to know about your energy efficiency. Just ask these questions. Just have this huge, checklist you can only ask. And if you ask and the person on the end of the phone doesn't know the answer, well, that's great. Maybe next time they will. Maybe they'll think about it. Maybe they'll think, what a weird question. That's great. Just that's it. It's just promoting conversation around it.
Is it, and this is a question for me really, is it about being just a little bit less spoilt though? Is it it's sort of caring less about the things that are really impactful to you and your comfort and caring more about the environment that you're going to be putting your money into?
Helen, absolutely. That's the thing, isn't it, ultimately? That's the thing. And you know what else? This is the thing. You're exactly right. How does this affect me? Or how does this affect everyone? And the other thing is, short term versus long term. And these are all idealistic things. And look, if I'd said to you 5 years ago, we sat here having this conversation, I'd say, you know what? I just don't want anyone to buy battery farmed chickens anymore. We're all going to buy organic, chickens who've lived a lovely life. That's not practical. I hope we've moved on, and lots of us have educated ourselves about why that matters. But it's not realistic. But I think those of us who can choose the right thing, and that's all it is just trying to do the right thing. And I think most people want to do that.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about, when we're choosing place, tell me a bit about disaster tourism and under-tourism and how they can influence their choices. Because I hadn't heard of those terms before. Right. And again, it's quite interesting for framing, where we're going to go and what we're going to do.
So, disaster tourism, that's heavy, isn't it? So I'm really proud to be the first sustainability editor of Condé Nast Traveller, probably, I think, first travel magazine, certainly of, a big title. And they are actively encouraging me to write articles about this, which a couple of years ago, I can assure you, no one was. Everyone just wanted the nice, lovely features about where should we go. And, when Beirut happened, Tabitha, who's the digital editor, said, look, what can we write about this? What can you do that shines a light on how we can support a devastated destination? So I'm obviously not going to write an article saying, oh, you should go here on holiday, because obviously it's nuanced, you have to be sensitive. But what she prompted me to do was just think, how can the travel community help? And it's incredible when you start looking. I contacted Gordon Smith, who's a wonderful aviation writer, and he said to me, oh, actually, Etihad and Emirates is running a points system. You can donate your loyalty points to their fundraiser for Beirut, which actually I have done, and they will use that towards cargo. So we wrote about that. Or we talk about, Nepal, it's 5 years, the anniversary since the earthquake. We can shine a light on the community homestays there, where you go and stay in the villages in someone's in someone's home. And then obviously that's direct action. Because the big thing for me about travel, and the thing that's really breaking my heart right now about not being able to travel long haul, whilst it's giving nature, a rest and a break in terms of carbon emissions, sure, travel is such a powerful way to distribute money, especially from those who have it to those who do not have it. And that's not happening right now. So, I think we have a duty, a responsibility. If you live somewhere in a country, well, look, actually, there's a lot of deprived people in our own countries, and I've got thoughts on that as well. But anyway, on how we can help you travel. But it's kind of our duty, I think, to not line the coffers of those who already have money, but support those who, that's what tourism or travel as a force for good means. And people, it's just a term an expression being bandied about. It's about really understanding what that means.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually, we've had a question come in on that, which I think it's right in that heartland. And it's from Christian. Hello, Christian. And he says, Juliet, for those of us who spent most of our lives doing long haul travel, what responsibility do we have to those we are not supporting now by staying in the UK?
Yeah, so that's okay. So what responsibility do we have to those in far-flung places? Like if I decided to go to, great question, and this is everything. And really, Christian, I don't know what you do, but can we just, I'm hoping you can help me do this. Can we just develop maybe a little cryptocurrency for the whole world where we start sort of paying in money into an account every month as much as we can put aside, and that money is used to support conservation or welfare of people in places that are being starved of tourist money? Could we do that maybe? Is that too much to ask? Sorry. So that's what I would like to do. It's a good point. We do have a duty. There's a whole much bigger conversation. There's a fascinating conversation around foreign aid at the moment and charities. Really, it's not ideal that 10% of the world relies on tourism, if I'm honest. But, there's a lot to do around that. But yes, so I was talking to people in Africa today, and I was hearing great news that lots of people are donating to the foundations affiliated with various safari lodges. But, I feel a huge draw. I wish I could, I wish I could, it's like timeshare. We could put money aside every month towards an incredible trip to Africa where I know that they're supporting the rangers, which I know is working against poaching, which is on the up again. And obviously that connects with nature itself. We need to protect nature because otherwise, it's all interconnected. And that's something I'm probably not expressing well enough. I'll tell you why I'm worried about the internet connection. There's some guy banging on the door trying to come in here. I'm like, sorry. But, he's doing it again. I'm so sorry, I'm just broadcasting something. Oh, I'm so sorry. 2 secs, guys. Sorry about that. It's okay. I'm just... Okay.
I know. It doesn't happen on TV, I know. I think Juliet has gone to answer the door, and she'll be back in a moment.
Did you get to enjoy the little scene there while I was gone? Sorry about that.
We have spoken. I think it's really interesting. I think your point is really quite. Take some time to get your head around the fact that we mustn't forget our obligations to these countries that we've visited and these trips that we've had just because we can't get there. And any ways of technology or not-for-profits or, any kind of way of maintaining these relationships with people that we still want to be there, running the businesses and the hotels and the restaurants whenever we can get back to them is a really interesting level in terms of our responsibility worldwide. I think it's something that we've touched on it. I don't think we can go much more, and I think it's really interesting. I think it was quite shocking when I first heard that the first time, and it makes a lot of sense. I think we've spoken a little bit about staycations. They may not be ideal, but lots of really interesting companies are coming up, and there are amazing opportunities in the UK to do things you just haven't done before because you haven't wanted to or needed to, and they are right there. We've spoken a bit about long haul. I'd also like to talk about the way we travel, and how that can perhaps your advice on how we can change that. Can you tell us a little bit about your opinion on slow travel? You know, what that means to you, and why it's so good, and how we can begin to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, slow travel, you know, there are lots of people who would sort of laugh at that being given a label. I think,
Sure.
perhaps, lots of people who went on hiking holidays or trips like that's kind of what they did anyway. It's just like, going back, it's a really helpful analogy actually to use food or fashion. So we go back to the slow food model, where, it's about low food miles, it's about real ingredients, something quite simple and wholesome from small suppliers. Fashion, we also talk about slow design, again, going back to traditional craftsmanship and natural materials. And it's that same ethos with slow travel, is that idea of low octane, certainly. And I think now more than ever, just really appreciating, feeling present, enjoying every moment of that trip. And if you actually think about traveling instead of racing around, just seeing the landscapes, every detail. Your senses really appreciating every aspect of where you are. I would say that, that's one way of looking at slow travel. And something I think that's really important, what I've loved in the book, by the way, is recommending people who've been doing this for years and that's their speciality. So you've got someone like Richard Hammond, who is green traveller, and he puts together itineraries which let you get to Europe, which we go to Europe without sort of trains or without flying, so you take trains or ferries. And so Richard Hammond would be a great person to slow travel. And what was the other thing you said?
It was about how we could begin to think about it. Sort of really beginning to think about shifting away from, flying to Europe and maybe looking at trains, maybe looking at, perhaps driving. It's just that, it just really made me laugh. Dickon, who's a producer right here, and I drove through the Sahara, and we kind of like wrote on the side of the car that we were driving through for the joke, it's not the destination, it's the journey that matters. It was a sort of trope, a joke, in the kind of early 2000s. But I think it's almost a time that we do need to reclaim. The minute you step out of your house, whether you're on a bike or whether in your car, that can be the start of your travel. We did a session on pilgrimages earlier this year, and the woman who did it said, look, it's your intention that matters. You can turn a walk into a pilgrimage if you're really meditating on an idea, or if you've got something to think about, or if you just want to consider the awe and amazement of nature. And I think there's a kind of like lots of different ways that we can begin to really enjoy the travel that we do. We're just ignoring it because we just think our trip doesn't arrive until we get out of the airport and into our hotel. But this is a good opportunity.
Yeah, and you know what you're reminding me? The big thing you're reminding me of is travel. It shouldn't be about stuff. It'd become sort of about amenities, what hotels had, what they could brag about, the little aspects. It's the same. And what we're talking about, again, is going back to that idea of it being a travel, but about being feeling transported. It's not, it's not just about the thread count of the sheets. So I think it's going back to the basics about how you feel, how you're connecting with where you are. And I really hope, more than anything, it's a shift. You said it's just a shift in thoughts and our behavior. And really my book it's not just signposting you to where you should go for your next holiday or anything like that. It's really just shifting that attitude towards everything, how you're planning, who you trust to get recommendations from, what you pack in your suitcase, what you take, why you shouldn't maybe take that, why you should maybe take that if you want to have a low impact. Because don't forget, and the big thing, if I said one thing in this whole chat, it's that, sustainability isn't just about being eco-friendly or environmentally friendly in terms of our impact. It's about our socio-economic impact. So it's really about, what are you packing in your suitcase? Who do you buy everything from? to while you're there, you know, and who you're interacting with. Something I worry about with COVID, and I haven't heard anyone really talk about this, is this whole sort of cashless economy that we're going into because we're using less cash. What about those people? Well, no, just think about all those people in the past at the end of the, you know, your trip who relied on those little cash tips. What are they doing? What are those bag carriers in India or South America who just relied on those little bits of cash tip? What are they doing right now? My goodness. Anyway, it's just, you know, heartbreaking to think about everyone at the end of the supply chains.
It's complicated. It's so complicated. And the supply chain is exactly right. You know, your point about thinking about every element of the supply chain is really interesting. I've got a couple of questions I want to get to you. One's from Jill. Hello, Jill. She really likes your fireplace. It does look lovely in Wales. Got to say, it does look really lovely.
It's cozy.
She says, and I think this is a question that a lot of us, I think, really agree with, is really interested in, is if you need one, a serious question is, as the winter nights draw in, many of us seek a holiday now at this time of year, and I'm one of them, to give us daylight and sunshine to compensate for the impact of winter on our mental well-being. You know, I think a lot of us have got very used to this idea of, you know, I definitely cope with winter by trying to get sun in the middle of it. If we're not into spas and mindfulness and yoga and that kind of wellness trip, what are our hopes of a holiday that will lift our winter spirits? Just wondered if you had any ideas.
You know, I don't necessarily know the answer, but if we were all having a conversation, and I suppose what I'm trying to highlight is how we think about things and discuss things, I guess we'd look at, why do we need that holiday in winter? Well, probably we partly really need the sunshine, the vitamin D. So how do we resolve that? I mean, actually, there are probably places you can go that aren't that far, whether it's on top of a snowy mountain, and you can just soak up some of that vitamin D, or in the UK, if you can find somewhere to do it, or perhaps just because we get bored of just being inside in our four walls, are there places we can go that are an extraordinary change of scene, you know? And how does it make us feel? So I went to a little hotel in Scotland called Fife Arms, which is by the creators of Hauser and Wirth Gallery. All that art and stimulation, that would certainly shake away some of your winter torpor if you went there in January, I'm sure. I will say that the likes of the Indian Ocean are getting more bookings than ever, or inquiries than ever, I hear from top travel agents. So that appeal of a private island destination, but we can't all afford that. But, you know, so why do we need to, in winter, great walks, you wrap up. I mean, I know that's not the same as going to Cape Verde or something like that, but for a short while, we'll have to travel a little bit differently.
And it's true. And I think, you know, it's considering it, isn't it? It's just, you know, it's interesting to hear about the Maldives and really understand it. But, you know, just to kind of finish off, just wondered, are there any trends coming that you think could encourage us to think about travel differently? I know we talked about pleasure before, which you say is years old now. But are there any ways that we can rethink about our work and our leisure and sort of moulding them together in a way that perhaps could allow us to travel more sustainably?
So I think business travel is the ones that's going to suffer. We know that. You know, gosh. So that's like kind of like a negative trend. So business travel is probably the hardest hit, particularly if you're dealing, especially with American clients. So I think we're only going to travel for quite some time if we really have to. So pleasure, this is mixing business with pleasure. I think we're all doing that anyway now because we've been working from home. There's the term that came up over, you know, lockdown, the nomadic traveler, professional nomadic, you know. So I think...
Nomadic,
yeah. I think that we're going to, you know, I mean, everyone's different. That's the other thing is we have to remember is everyone is different. Everyone's in a different niche. So what suits a young couple without kids, or a family with kids, or a single person, these are all going to be different things. If I wasn't tied to my daughter's schooling in London, I'd probably entertain going somewhere for an extended spell, you know. It's all going to be different for different people. I think that we just, in terms of trends, I think we'll travel less but travel better, and we'll go away for longer breaks. Less, you know, multi-stop destination trips, really, really sort of committing, what do we call it, like monogamous to one destination in a trip. Which are, these are, from a sustainability point of view, these are not bad things. These are great things, you know.
Yeah, thank you, Julia. And I think that could be another great answer for you, Jill. You should go somewhere for a month, take your laptop and do your job there. Juliet, you are trying to answer an enormous, question. Travel is a huge love for so many of us, and it's so nuanced and so complicated, from the very local to truly global. And you've put together a book that really is helping people reframe what they want from it and how to do it. And yeah, please show it. I haven't got one, so please show. There is your book. Exactly.
It's so light and easy. I will say that. It's not a massive. No, but it's like, it's so easy to read. It's embarrassingly easy to read. Like, you flick through in a couple of
I love that. I love that. As someone who has to read 200 books a year.
It's light and easy.
And I think your fashion, your food analogy is a really good one. It takes time to change our ideas. It takes time to change our behaviours and our pattern. And we need a lot more ideas and tips and inspirations in order to be able to do it. And I think you've tackled it really well and found a framework that we can begin to make the changes. Thank you so much. I will definitely be taking some of the things in the book to heart. I'm definitely travelling a lot less, travelling a lot better and for longer. No monogamously all the way. Thanks to you, Juliet, when it comes to travel destinations.
Well, yeah, and it's like I said, we're not going to use travel guides like we used to do. It's not me telling you what to do with a list of recommendations. It's really, this is the time I would hope to really spend thinking about where you're going to go, if not even next year, the year after, but really thinking about, because we will go back to wanting trips of a lifetime. I hope you really just think a little bit more deeply.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Juliet. I know it's been a real worry with the Wi-Fi, and I know you're in the middle of Wales. You live I know it's really difficult. It's really, really difficult. Thank you. I do understand. Thank you so much, Juliet. And thank you so much for giving us your time and helping us get to grips with a massive, massive industry and what might happen in the most crazy times for the industry ever. Thank you so much. Thank you, Juliet.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being. I know a lot of you have bought the book. Thank you. A lot of the work that we do with Salon is tied with books and is really designed to get us together with ideas. In lots of ways, it's really similar to Juliet's ideas around travel. We are trying to resist the convenience of having books delivered the next day, and so I helpfully sell books more expensive than that particular company does, and we take longer to get them to you. So thank you so much for getting your book from us. We really appreciate that, and we will get that in the post to you. Juliet has signed them for us, so thank you, Juliet. So thank you so much for being part of this Salon discussion on how to travel now. I hope you're planning the trips of a lifetime in the most beneficial way for you and for the planet. Thank you so much. This Salon is now closed.